Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, it's Rich here. I'm calling from Youngstown. Right now, I think our problem is that offensive line. That's our biggest problem. You got a kid who's playing fast because NFL is faster than college, and the offensive line isn't doing that great, or else the running back we have showed he can get it up and go. So right now, I think try to fix that offensive line, try to get some receivers, and Shador, you better wait because the amount of sacks he took the last game, he could be in there, and he took a lot of sacks in college, though, too. So come on, ease up on him.
Yeah, the problem is it's not one or two offensive linemen. You probably need 4 or 5 offensive linemen to go with a couple of wide receivers, and a quarterback. So it's a mess offensively. And I just wonder, is the root of it that you trusted this offensive line, which was getting old, not to get off the cliff, and they went off the cliff. This offensive line, love them all, but they look nothing like the lines that were dominating a few years ago.
Yeah, maybe that's part of the equation, too, as to why Kevin's lost what he did so well offensively early on in his tenure, is that this offensive line just isn't quite as good. You know, it's interesting you bring up, as we start with the offensive line part of this conversation, that group, because you're right, like they have fallen off a cliff in terms of maybe just aging out of the league and not being quite as effective anymore. But what I will say is it's a tall task. I don't care who the GM is. Andrew Berry, name one of the best GMs in NFL history, whoever comes to mind. If it was Bill Belichick building the roster, whoever, like it's a tall task to rebuild an entire offensive line in one off season. So as we start thinking about like the trade deadline tomorrow and what's going to kind of come with that, and we're looking around at the roster, and everyone's obviously pointing to the guys on the roster who have like one year left on their deal or playing in the last year of their deal, and guys like Wyatt Teller and Ethan Posick and Jack Conklin all pop up to the front of our minds. Look, I get it. Like I get why those guys are all sort of candidates to potentially be shopped around, but at the same time, can the Browns really afford to bring back nobody from this group? Like, I'm not saying that you're going to retain them all because it is a mess, like you said. But somebody like Wyatt, I think, is still playing at a solid enough level individually that you can sort of rebuild an offensive line and have him still be part of this, because you need some answers and some continuity there going into next year. Fixing and replacing all those guys is going to be tough. I think Joel's probably going to retire. Jack Conklin, who knows what his future holds, but he can't stay healthy. I don't think you'd retain him. Maybe Ethan Posick you keep, but the other thing you got to think about is which positions do you have, guys coming up that you can maybe lean on in the future as prospects or players for you, and which ones do you not? Who is this team's guards next year if Joe Bitonio retires and you trade Wyatt Teller? Like Zach Zinter? Zach Zinter he's been a healthy scratch for 7 out of the 8 weeks that they've had games this season. Like, so I don't know like what the whole vision of how this gets rebuilt is going to look like. I think you have to keep some of these guys around to sort of just have some sort of stability up front. Obviously, the receiver room is a big one. I do kind of wonder if the Browns explore a trade for a wide receiver at the deadline here on Tuesday. I don't think it's going to be the big splashes that everyone's throwing out there, like the Garrett Wilson stuff, which is more, I feel like, of an internet rumor than anything. I don't even know that they'd go after like Chris Olave or like a Jalen Waddle, because I don't think they want to give up the draft capital, the top end draft capital, to get those guys. But honestly, like, I'll go back to the Saints. Somebody like Rashid Shaheed, like, there's a guy that can take the top off of defense a little bit. Probably only cost you like a day 3 pick. You got a handful of those. Why not take a shot on that? It might help you in the short term in terms of trying to push the ball downfield now. And it's a guy who's in the last year of his deal anyway, so it'll be a cheap trade to get him, and maybe you re-sign him. So Andrew Berry's had a propensity to land guys that are already established NFL wide receivers, and so I wonder if that's maybe something they consider at least tomorrow at the deadline, and certainly this offseason it could come back into play. But I still think they're probably going to have to draft one of those guys as well. But listen, you're right. Like, at the root of all this is what you said, Dave. They have a lot of needs to get to address on offense. There's a lot of problems, and it's going to take a lot of overhauling and draft capital and all those different things to get this thing back on track this offseason.